Good morning. Hi.
Right.
Um, okay, we're going to get started. We start things on time here, and it's 9 o'clock. So, or 9 o'clock Pacific, that is. So in San Francisco, we have a two-part talk today. We're going to start with an entrepreneur talk titled "Starting a Company from Novel Science," and I'll introduce her in a moment. And then we're going to talk about the Global Life Sciences Healthcare Entrepreneurship class that I lead. And so, welcome everybody. If you want to put your countries in the chat, we have quite a diverse group. People may still be joining. I can't see the full screen at the moment. But I'm very impressed by people from multiple continents who've signed up for this. So, hopefully, they'll all have a chance to join. So I'm Stephanie Maris. I run the entrepreneurship program at the University of California, San Francisco, which we call UCSF. We are probably the premier life sciences healthcare university in the country and very highly ranked in the world. I'll tell you more about that later. And we have 7 Nobel laureates. And so it's very high quality science and medicine. Um, on the screen with me is Ivana Vasic. And Ivana was my student a few years ago in this global class. She'll relate a little bit about her experience there. But why it's such a pleasure to have her joining us today is that she walked out of completed, I should say, a PhD at UCSF and a postdoc at UCSF and started a company. And this company is started around some very novel science and in conjunction with a Nobel laureate that Ivana knows well. So it's very exciting to have her here. She's raised over $10 million for her startup, and she's working on some really cool things. So I'm going to turn this over to Ivana to tell you about what it was like to start a company, how she got there, and a little bit about what that novel science is. So, Ivana, you're on.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. So hi, it's nice to meet everyone. So as Stephanie mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of a startup called Vitra Labs. We are a women's fertility company. So we're working on a method to mature egg cells outside of the ovary. So we're working on kind of next generation IVF technologies. And this work spun, as Stephanie mentioned, out of my academic work at UCSF, and also in conjunction with a nonprofit research institute called the Gladstone Institutes, which is also on the UCSF campus. So I'm obviously a very technical founder. I wasn't really kind of expecting to start a company at all. So I love research, and really I was just focused on kind of developing the science more. And I think after a while, it became clear to me that doing this specific type of research and building a company from it, it makes more sense. And I can talk more about kind of which projects later are you should start a company with or should not, and when it makes sense to do one or the other. Um, but long story short, I was fully on track. I was a postdoc. I was fully on track to kind of finish my postdoc and hopefully become a professor. But then I got this opportunity to kind of spin my research out into a startup, and I was opportunistic and took it. And that's kind of how the story began. Stephanie, I don't know, maybe I can talk. I don't know if you want me to talk about the global class now, or I can finish off with it later,
Yeah,
kind
why
of
don't
as
you
a
finish
final
later?
thought.
I'm sure they want to hear more about your journey to starting the company, what it's been like to be CEO, some of the challenges of fundraising, and what it's like to have novel science that not everybody is comfortable with, but still is very exciting for a company.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I think the most stressful part of the job, I think there's two things. The first, of course, is raising money and finding investors. And the other piece that I think a lot of people don't appreciate so much is when I was starting a company, of course, I was coming from academia and my postdoc, and I had this notion that I would be doing science like 85% of the time, and that I would be doing kind of business and these other logistical and operations things 15% of the time. But in fact, it's quite opposite to that. I spend maybe 10% of my time thinking about novel science now that I'm a CEO, and we have other people in the company who spend 100% of their time only thinking about science. But as a founder, you're really an operator in a very hardcore sense, and this is maybe seems obvious now that I say it, but uh, business is really about people and building relationships, and I think it's not for everybody. Um, I had a lot of, it was a very steep learning curve trying to understand, how to manage people without having any industry training whatsoever. So I just came in right from my academic lab. I had managed rotation students and their projects, maybe one or two of them. But kind of the prospect of managing, um, former pharma execs who, are much older than me, much more experienced than me, and teams of scientists who um, have published more papers than me is quite that's quite a steep learning curve to understand how you can communicate with them and convince them. And we have a team of 10 scientists right now, and they're all PhD level, very very smart, creative people. And and of course everybody who comes in feels ownership over their own projects. They want the startup to succeed. They're passionate about the mission. And everybody has their own ideas about how and which direction the science should go. But at the end of the day, you're the CEO. And so you have to find a way to bring everybody together and make sure that everybody is paddling in the same direction, that we're being productive, and we can't have people going off in all different directions. So especially when you're building something new and it's not just kind of an optimization or a screen or something like that, it can be very challenging because there's a lot of different paths you can take. And so you need to kind of be aware, forewarned that it does require hiring a lot of technical um, people, and those types of people do kind of come with their own challenges in terms of how to manage them. And I think that's one thing that I learned that was that was difficult. But you respect them a lot, and you love the team, and you love what you're doing. So that's all. So it's all worth it. And in
So I have a couple
fact,
of
they may be
questions
smarter.
about all this. So first of all, why did you think you could do it when you really never had a job before this? And second, how did you convince these more sophisticated people to join your team when you're a young female CEO?
That's a great question, Stephanie. So I think the first answer probably will be unsatisfying, which is that it was ignorant. It was a little bit of willful ignorance starting. I don't know if, knowing everything I know now, that I would have felt so confident to charge ahead. But I really did have a fantastic premise, and I knew that we had good science. And I was very, very confident that that was true and real. I think if you're trying to build something and you kind of, it's just, smoke, and you're trying to, put your arms around it and say, okay, and sell it to investors. If you yourself don't believe something that you're building and that you're trying to sell, I think it makes it very, very hard to raise money. And I think investors will sniff it out. And they're very, very good at that. I think sometimes people can raise under those circumstances, but they never get so far, right? Maybe maybe you raise a pre-seed round or even a seed round, but when it comes to raising larger rounds, wouldn't you just rather have something, build it out, spend some time building it out now so that you lay the foundation and it can grow into a meaningful company. And people will kind of in later stages of your career will look back on that first company you started, and um, they will kind of judge you on the success of the company and the success of the team that you recruited. So even if, in responding to your second question, Stephanie, even if you're able to somehow hoodwink the investors who are uh, investing in those first stages, certainly you will not be able to fool the scientists who come in and who work on the project. So it's I think, very hard to recruit a team without a strong foundation, and that can mean many different things. I think um, sometimes it's very mission oriented, where you know you um, you have something that people kind of relate to and that they're motivated by. And if you don't have that, it's like, well, why would I come work at a startup? It's an incredibly stressful environment. It's a very dynamic environment. It's a very unstable environment. So they need to have, you need to inspire them and give them some reason to come on this treacherous, in some ways, journey with you. And so I think you need to think about what that is, whether it's, of course, it can be, usually it's not salary because, people aren't paid the same as in a big industry. So you have to, I think some people do like the adventure of building something new. And so that's a motivator for a lot of people. Giving them exposure, feeling that they have a voice in creating something from scratch, I think is a very powerful motivator. So those are kind of the things I think that you need to figure out for yourself before you start building and have a very good, coherent story for the people you're trying to recruit.
So you have to have passion, not just for investors, but to create a team as well.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So talk a little bit. I remember working with you, doing a little mentoring back. How many years ago was it? 3, 4 years ago, when you were just trying to start this, and we talked about, are people going to buy into this science? It's pretty speculative and so on. How did you overcome those kinds of issues?
So I think so first and foremost, for sure, as I mentioned, there has to be a very strong scientific foundation. So maybe to give you just all a little bit of more insight into what Stephanie's talking about, just at a very high level, we were developing a method to essentially mature oocytes, so egg cells, from patient stem cells. So that's quite an outlandish idea in a lot of ways when you think about it. It's not technology that anybody has ever heard before, but it's very impactful technology. And the story was, we could eliminate the need for hormone stimulation and surgical egg retrieval prior to fertility cycles, and we can essentially guarantee successful pregnancy just with potentially a blood draw. And so I think that story appealed to many, many people. And fertility as a space has been, I think, long neglected. Um, there has been, not very much funding in women's health and fertility. And suddenly, I think there was a change in the tide where people realized that this is an enormous market, and investors started to realize that they could, capitalize on the lack of technologies in this market, and started investing in women's they call it fem tech, or health tech. And so it was a good time to do that. But then it's not enough, I think, to just say, okay, we have this idea that's kind of um, a complex scientific idea. We really had, I think, the scientific papers to back it up, and the patents from my previous institute, where we showed we could control signaling pathway activation, and that we use this platform to, generate some patents, and we were basically halfway there already to creating these cells. So I think it's both. You need to have an appetite from the investors. The timing has to be right. For example, right now, gene therapy is going through a little bit of a hard patch, because we realize, delivery is a big problem. So thinking about, I think you need to also talk to people and have your finger on the pulse. What are people investing in now? Where is the appetite, and why? Is there a big market for what you're doing? And is there a way you need to kind of not have the full business model, but at least some skeleton of it in your head. And I think Stephanie's class can help you a lot with that, to understand, is this something that I can actually deliver um, to patients, or, whatever your product is, and how will I do it? How will I pass the clinical and regulatory hurdles on my way to do that? So it's many things, but that's very important.
Talk a little bit about the class and what was most impactful for you.
So I can't recommend the class enough. It was, as I mentioned, I was fully on track to do my postdoc and hopefully become a professor. And I took this class essentially because my PI offhandedly mentioned one time, "Hey, did you think that maybe this could be a startup?" And I really wasn't thinking that way at first. So I was a UCSF student. I found the class. It was during, COVID, or right before COVID, or that
It was
area
during
kind of
COVID.
right after we came back. So I took the class, and I really had no prior exposure whatsoever to building a company. And I think what the class is really good at doing, I think there's two things that I really liked about the class. The first thing is that the content is very, one, accessible, and two, it gives you a blueprint for someone like me who needs kind of to understand things. And before, it seems kind of just like a bog. You don't know what you're getting into, and when you don't know what you're getting into, it's really hard to do something. And so I think it just demystified the process of what it's like to form a startup, and the components that you need. And it's also a community. So one thing that I can't emphasize enough is that the process of starting your startup really needs to be community oriented. You need to meet investors. You need to go to networking events, whether in person or virtual. But you need to start. It was COVID at that time, right? So I was having tons and tons and tons of Zoom calls with other founders, with pre-seed investors who are also looking to be the first check in a company. So and that was the class was really, really good for, one, building that community, but also for giving you a skeleton of what the process would look like and the components that you need to put together to actually have a successful pitch, and then and in some ways have a successful company after that. I think Stephanie does a really, really good job with the curriculum, and it's very thoughtfully kind of organized. And another thing that I like, and which is kind of surreal now that I'm the speaker in the class, but when I was a student, I really liked hearing about. I really liked that she brought in a lot of founders and entrepreneurs to kind of give their firsthand accounts on what it's like to build a company. And I reached out to several of these speakers for random little logistic things when I was starting a company. So one guy set me up with their lawyers, and I had there's all these kind of tiny operational things. There's little advice that you can get from other founders that can make your life a lot easier. And so that's another part of the class that I really liked. And there's no better, I think, way to hear it than directly from the horse's mouth. So that was, I think, a great part of the class as well.
So was you had already decided to start a company when you took the class, or did the class help you decide, or where did it go?
No, I hadn't actually. Yeah. I hadn't decided at all. And I think that was one of kind of the first I had two major kind of pushes over the finish line to start, or actually it's not even a finish line. It's just the beginning, right? Um and one of them was the class. I think it was very kind of motivational to me to do it.
Yeah, great. Well, Ivana, I know you have to run to a meeting, but thank you so much for sharing some of your path. And I'm just so delighted to see how successful you've been so far. I expect much more of this. It's going to happen. This field is going to blossom, and you're here in the middle, in the beginning of it, actually. So best of luck, and we actually have offices pretty close to each other, so
Yep.
I hope to stop by another time and catch up.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
Stephanie. Yeah, I will. And good luck to all the prospective students. Yeah, hope you take the class and get as much out of it as I did. Thanks so much, Stephanie. Nice to see you.
thanks, Ivana. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Well, it's a joy to see one of my students be so successful. I guess I should have shown this before. She's also Forbes 30 under 30. For those of you who know what that is, Forbes magazine chooses some of the top people in different age groups, and she was one of them. Um, so we're going to switch gears for a moment. I was just so impressed by the countries that are represented here today. And some of you have already put it in the chat, but if you haven't, please let us know where you're from. We have multiple continents showing, and yeah, it's just that's what this global class is about. It's about bringing people together from all over the world to network, to learn from each other, and just to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem and community of our own. So thank you for putting that into the chat. I'm so curious. Inder, would you read some of them off? I can't see it on the screen at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So we have Argentina, Algeria, China, Poland. Um, we have,
Wow.
see, I think some from Egypt. There you go.
Yeah.
Brazil. And
Yeah.
then we have
And
obviously our San Francisco, and we have Oklahoma, I think, represented
all
here.
right.
So,
Okay. Well, it's great to have all of you here, and I want to spend the rest of the time talking about this global class that Ivana took and was so instrumental in her decision. I didn't realize how important it had been, and it makes me feel really proud to be able to launch someone like her. So I run this class. I also run the entrepreneurship program at UCSF. And I think I mentioned UCSF already, is that we're ranked number 16 in universities in the world. And that's pretty amazing because we are no undergraduates, only a graduate school. We are only science and medicine, and we actually started the biotech industry by forming Genentech, an early San Francisco-based company with one of the earliest venture capitalists. So we have our own hospital system. So we have all the elements that can build a great entrepreneurship ecosystem. And what this is about, and Ivana said it, is it's really a community, an entrepreneurship community for professionals to learn about science and medical startup business from Silicon Valley practitioners. And I'm emphasizing these words because they're kind of key. So it's targeted to professionals, although we welcome any students who want to come. It's about business, and it's taught by practitioners. So you're not going to see any theory here. You're going to see this is how it's done. And it's with a Silicon Valley perspective because we are the number one startup ecosystem in the world. And there's so many good lessons to be taken away that you can take back to your countries or your parts of the United States. And recognizing Oklahoma here. Yeah, we're glad we've had people from Oklahoma before, so welcome. The people who have gone through this program have said things like this to me. That's Srivan. told me. He's in the clinical trial world, and he said this has been absolutely life-changing. So we talked about how that it's a community. Here are ways we're different. We are purely life sciences and healthcare focused. So there are a lot of entrepreneurship courses out there, but not with this very specific focus. And we are in a very different world than our tech brothers and our climate brothers and sisters and whatever. Tech, I mean, brothers as in bro. We say that in Silicon Valley. It's all Silicon Valley practitioners. And you could tell from what Ivana said that she reached out to them afterwards. So they're very open. They want to seed the next generation of entrepreneurs. And many of them will say, here's my email, email me, or, get in touch through Stephanie. And then they're open to helping you individually. It's also a very high touch course. So even though it's videoed and we record all the videos, of course, the lectures are very interactive. So I'm known to stop a lecturer in the middle of their talk and say, Jorge, what did you mean by ROI? It's not a term we understand. And so and we take questions from the chat as well. So very interactive. And then besides the lectures, we have small groups, and I'll talk about those in a few minutes. It also communicates the mindset and culture of Silicon Valley. So by being in this class, you will pick up what it's like to be doing a startup here. And it's truly different than most other countries in the world. It's faster, it's more open, it's more flexible, I could go on forever about all this. If it doesn't work, that's fine. Go try something else. And so there are these characteristics of entrepreneurship here that we will help you understand because it's what makes it so successful. And then, of course, we have this global alumni network that we've built since 2020 when I started the course, when COVID first started. So why should you enroll? Well, first of all, find out if your idea can be a business. Too many scientists work on interesting science, and years later, they decide they're going to do a startup and nobody wants to fund them. And because we're in life sciences and healthcare, we need funding. This is not, go write some code in your dorm room and then put it out there. So you should be evaluating your idea even before you do anything about it, because you want to be sure that you spend your time and resources on something that has the potential to be a startup. And there is so much of business that a scientist, a researcher, a clinician doesn't understand. And you need to, because really it's the difference between success and failure. I just pull an example from, actually, it was in today's news, but it's been around for a while. 23andMe, the genomic evaluation company that started as a consumer product company and then turned into a drug discovery company. It was a bad choice. The drug discovery never was successful. And so they didn't do their homework, their business homework, and the company is basically failed and is being sold off for a small percentage of the money that went into it. So if you don't get the business right, you're not going to have a successful startup, no matter how cool your technology is. You should also want to assess how you fit personally with this startup mentality. Not everyone should be an entrepreneur. I mean, I push entrepreneurship because I think it's so important globally. But I tell people, I don't think you've got the right mentality. You're not ready to go into a startup and all that it signifies. So this will help you figure out if you could be a good startup person. You'll also learn how investors think. We need their money, so we better understand them. They're our market. Understand how their funds work and what is interesting to them and what they'll look at. They are flooded with proposals from entrepreneurs every day. I mean, they will look at thousands of proposals a year. So how are you going to interest them? There's a true skill to that. And then you'll absorb this startup culture by being in the class. You'll join our global network and you'll have connections in Silicon Valley. So when you leave this course, I'll give the example of a Mexican entrepreneur who was in the class a few years ago. He wasn't even located in Mexico City. He was in another city outside, 2 hours from Mexico City, 2.5 hours. And by being in the class, he started networking in Silicon Valley. And through that, he was able to raise some money to put together a reasonable business plan and to have a Silicon Valley network, even though he hadn't moved yet. He plans to when he raises significant money. So it's a way to get started and reach out. I get asked all the time by people in other countries, "Hey, I'm coming to visit Silicon Valley in August. Can you connect me with some VCs?" And the answer is no, that's not the way it works. It doesn't. I don't just pick up the phone, call or call a VC and say, "Hey, do you want to see this random company that's coming up from, Brazil or wherever?" So connections. Here's another student we had. She's a senior vice president in a company. And she said the breadth, experience, and passion of all the speakers was absolutely best of class. Their sincere willingness for you to succeed, came through in every session. So what's the format? It's comprised of lectures, 2 hours a week for 10 weeks. They're live and recorded. So unlike many classes that exist from the top tier universities for entrepreneurship, they're often just recorded and you don't have any ability to interact with the experts and the speakers. We offer you that ability, and we also let you watch a recording afterwards or instead of the lecture. We also have small groups. So the lectures can be maybe, I'll say 30 to 70 people, depending on the topic. And we want to make sure everybody gets a chance to interact. And we also have all different sectors in life sciences and healthcare. So we have small groups that are led by industry mentors that address therapeutics, one that does diagnostics, one that does medical devices or med tech, and the last one, digital health or AI. So these are led by people from those sectors, and you have a discussion. And the idea is we'll break down the information from the lecture itself. For instance, FDA, it's a different pathway if you're a medical device or a diagnostic or whatever. And so we'll have people who know about what that pathway is in that sector that can help you understand what's applicable to you. So that's another feature of this. And we also, as Ivana mentioned, the importance of hearing from other founders and entrepreneurs. And we have an entrepreneurial war story group. So an entrepreneur who I know through the network has been running this since we started the class. And he brings in his network of entrepreneurs just to talk about sort of what Ivana was talking about. What's it like to start a company? What do you like about it? What's hard about it? How did you get to success and so on? So that's the small groups. And then we have networking events. So after class, we will sometimes say, "Hey, stick around for another half hour, hour, and meet some of your colleagues in class." So just pure networking, all online. We have alumni events where we invite alumni from prior years to join us for networking. And then in San Francisco in January, there's a very well-known conference or week of conferences called JP Morgan Healthcare Week. And we have an event, live in-person event at UCSF that week. And it's always very popular with people. People have come in from all kinds of countries to join us. They come also for the week. So it's a good timing thing. And then I hold office hours, so that's a chance for one-on-one mentorship from me. And my background, which I didn't talk about, is I come from the private sector, from industry. I've run companies, I've done business development, I've been chief operating officer and CEO. So I have a lot of background in what it's like out there in the real world, as we call it, the private sector, and what you need to do to be successful. And I've worked for a number of small biotechs. So that's the format here. I just want to pause for a minute and see if there are any questions. And Indra, can you help me and see? Please put your questions in the chat, and we'll try to answer them before we move on.
No questions at the moment, not that I see.
Okay, well, please, we want to make this interactive. So as I go along, put your question in or raise your hand, and we will call on you. So what are the topics we cover? Well, this is the first one for a very good reason, which is if your idea can't be a business, don't work on it. So it's called opportunity analysis. And it's taught by Darren Cook, who is actually an IP attorney. He also is in an angel group, has run some pieces of it. So angels, and I think you call them business angels in other countries. These are not VCs, but they are people who invest early, earlier than VCs. So he was part of a major angel group, Life Science Angels, and also UC Berkeley's accelerator called Skydeck. He advises there and chooses teams to join it. So he also runs a big program at UC Berkeley for entrepreneurship. So he's got great background, and he's a great guy to kick this off. And then I get to speak about business models. So the question is, how do you make money? You have to have a business model, otherwise you're not a business. So again, it's about much more than just the science or technology. It's about how the business plan that's going to get you to making money for the investors, probably not to market because that's so far away for us, but you have to have a plan for how you're going to realize something that makes it attractive to funders. Some of you may know Steve Blank. Steve Blank has been globally famous because I won't say he invented customer discovery, but he certainly is one of the most visible people to speak about it, and he's a huge proponent. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it means how are you going to find out that you really do have an opportunity and not just an idea for more science? And you go out and you talk to people. So Steve will explain how that works and how that informs your decision. He's at Stanford, but he started 8 companies, so he's an entrepreneur. And Teresa Toller is an expert on building teams. She's just joined, like within the last weeks, one of the hottest startups ever is called Zyra Therapeutics, Silicon Valley, of course. They are funded with $1 billion in the beginning. This is a startup. It's a $1 billion startup, and the former president of Stanford University is the CEO, and he's attracted great people. And what she's going to be doing is building the team out for Zyra. They are the interaction of AI and drug discovery. So she's going to be fascinating. She's just joined them. She has been engaged by VCs all over Silicon Valley to build out their portfolio company teams. And she tends to jump into a company for a bit and build the team and then go on. But we'll see what happens with Zyra. She's very excited about it, and she's got a very high-level job there. So that's Teresa. Todd Esker is an IP attorney, and there are lots of IP attorneys around Silicon Valley, but there aren't too many who can explain what IP is and how it works in a way that we normal people can understand. And Todd is one of those who can make it understandable so that you know what to do and who to turn to and when you need to file IP and all the things that can actually ruin your company if you miss out and you make mistakes. So that's Todd. And Ilan Irony is the person who teaches FDA and regulatory. And Ilan comes from the FDA. He was a deputy director there. And then he joined Johnson and Johnson. So he's been on both sides. He's been FDA side, and then he's been company side. So he is absolutely the right person to tell you about what you need to know about FDA and to get regulation right. Angel investment. So angels, as we talked about before, they're the earlier investors and venture capitalists. And Winnie Wan is a serial advisor, board director, mentor, and has been in companies. And she is also at this Life Science Angels group. So she is, from many perspectives, the right person to describe how angels work because she mentors people like you who are starting companies. So she knows it on that side, the company side, as well as the investor side. So she's a great asset. Venture capital, we have two VCs. Jorge Conde is general partner of Andreessen Horowitz, sometimes called A16Z. They are one of the hottest venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. You will, if you become aware of their name, you will see it on everything. And he runs the bio piece of Andreessen. He's also a great teacher and a really super guy. So I'm very pleased to have invited him back. And Robert Middendorf was on the schedule for the last couple of years. We'll see if we're going to be able to get him this year. So still in process, but also general partner of a firm that is started by one of the Facebook founders, now Meta. And he is really passionate about helping new entrepreneurs. He runs the healthcare side of B Capital and also a great teacher. Partnering, really essential for our kinds of companies, especially, and it's usually in the therapeutics world that people partner, but also in other places. And we have to teach that. We have Leslie Stoltz, who's the vice president at Johnson & Johnson Innovation, and Pat Sinatra, who sits on the company side. She's a consultant, and she will help companies get investment from people like Leslie, and they actually know each other quite well. So partnering, if you partner with a pharma company, that's going to solve many of your funding problems. And it also gives you credibility, and it also gives you access to their resources. So it's a really great pathway for a therapeutics company. And then we're seeing other kinds of partnerships as well in AI and in sometimes in devices and diagnostics. So that's that important lecture. And the US healthcare system, very complicated. Oh my gosh, wait till you hear this. Why do you need to understand it? Well, some of you may want to approach the US at some point, but also we have insurance reimbursement is a major driver of investment really in our new technologies because insurance is private insurance is very important here in the United States. And so both of these men know insurance reimbursement because they've dealt with it. And Ali's doing that right now. Eyal is doing his own startup in the fields. So great perspectives that you'll hear from them. And then we have entrepreneur stories. So besides that group, that small group I described before, we also have actually 3 entrepreneurs lined up for the class itself. Nick Hertz is a UCSF alum, and he's started now his second company. His first one was a very interesting company that we know many of the investors in, and they've come back and supported him in the second company. And Alice Zhang is with an AI genomics company, and she has a very inspirational story. She is an immigrant, and she had a tough time getting here and reestablishing herself. And immigrants are very likely to start companies because they've had to take such risks to come to the United States. And anyway, she relates her personal story and how she started this company. She dropped out of Stanford because she decided she wanted to do the company instead. So great stories, and we have a third entrepreneur who's going to be super interesting as well. Okay, this is Russ Ernst from a prior cohort. I love his quote because he said this directly to me. I was blown away by the quality of the people that are gathered in one place. The access you get is more than you could hope to do in years of networking, and you get it all in a 10-week span. So this is direct from a biotech entrepreneur in Boston. So I'm going to pause here to see what questions there are.
Yeah, Stephanie, we have a few questions in the chat. We have one from Woody. Woody, would you do you want to answer your ask your question live?
Oh, yes. So my question is essentially, if it's okay, can you walk through maybe one or two examples of some of the small group discussions or projects that are involved in the course?
Sure. Well, there aren't actually projects. It's really the project is learning all this material. But the small group discussions play off. Well, it's interesting. We ask the mentors, "Hey, they just had a lecture on X. Why don't you start with that theme and see what kinds of questions people have, or bring up some of the main points and see what people think." So that's where it starts, but it also can go any place. So often what happens is maybe they start off for a while talking about, FDA or IP or whatever, and then it's just open and people ask questions and they say, well, I'm doing a startup and I had problems with my FDA strategy and blah, blah, blah. Anyone have any ideas? So it's a discussion among the group and with the mentor. And it often turns to investment, actually, because everybody needs to know and wants to know how to raise money. And sometimes the mentors are investors as well. So it's quite varied, but it does start with a focus. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah, of
Sorry.
course. And we also, in the past, last year, we had an opportunity for people who were working on actual companies to pitch a group of investors. And depending on the composition of this class, if we have enough people to do that, we're going to, so I guess you'd call that the project. We're going to open it up for pitches. So, okay, other question.
Yep, we have Danielle. Did you want to ask your question live?
Course. Hi, Stephanie. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
I'm from Brazil, and we went through the Startup Bootcamp last year. And my question is about if we can participate of the program because we already have our first MVP and we start the pilot yet here in Brazil. So my question is we are able to join the group or not?
Oh, absolutely. I would welcome you at any point in this whole journey. It's great if you were just thinking about doing something and you can go through some of this exercise, but any point you come in, it's going to be very valuable. I mean, you're just going to learn and you can be pretty focused because you know what you're working on. And when you hear from some of the people, you're like, wow, I didn't know I should check that out. And so it's very impactful. And in a lot of ways, because you've done some of the thinking, that's helpful.
Okay,
So, yeah,
thank you.
please join us. By the way, our former FDA presenter is from Brazil. Is that how you?
Really?
Yeah. And
Nice.
she tells people about the class. So Ilana, I'm going to
Great.
forget her last name, Indra, you probably remember. Anyway, yeah, so it would be great to have some Brazilians in class. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other question?
Yeah, and the last question is, Hanan, I know so the question's about course charges and when it starts, and I know we're gonna
Great.
talk
Why
about
don't
that.
I keep going,
Mhm.
and please keep putting your questions in the chat. So this is about the discussion groups, to Woody's question. So here they are. Our mentors are serial entrepreneurs, early stage CEOs, investors, business development executives, consultants of all kinds, and so on. So people with very varied experience. And if you come to, let's say we have, I think, three groups, three of these sector discussion groups during the period. They will be led by different mentors. So you'll get different perspectives and you'll learn something from each of them. I always learn from our mentors. They're really great and they're very dedicated. They've been doing this now for years. And this is the head of the Entrepreneurial War Stories group, Brian Feth, who's a founder of Excel Biosciences. And I knew him, I've known him since before he started the company. So, and it's been over 10 years, and I've been through some of his struggles to get funding and so on. So he kept going. He's a real entrepreneur. He's raised over $50 million the last time I looked. And so he's been very successful. So it's always great to hear from him and his network. And then, just some reasons why you should take this class. If you're sitting there saying, I don't know, I'm not really doing a startup right now. Well, clearly, if you're doing a startup at any stage, I mean, I've had people say to me, boy, I wish I had this class 2 years ago, because I would have done these things differently. So, if you're working on a startup now or thinking about doing a startup, you can benefit greatly. Some people come just because they want to know how we do it here in Silicon Valley. And so there are people from other ecosystems who maybe have positions like mine, or running some piece of a program to help entrepreneurs. And how do we do it here? It's a way to pick up our culture. So it's something you can describe to people, but you don't really get it until you see how we operate, and you'll get that through the class. Figuring out your own fit with doing a startup. You might just have an interest in early stage ventures as a potential investor, as a potential, we've had pharmaceutical company people join because they want to know how it works at the early stage. So lots of reasons. We've had a real estate person, we've had a executive search person. So lots of reasons. And then joining this network that we've created. And Jared, who's from the Netherlands, has said, anyone who's interested in taking science or life science research onto the next level through entrepreneurship should strongly consider this course as a stepping stone to the next phase of their journey. So he was a pure researcher, and this really was eye-opening. So who's in this course? We talked about some of this, quite a few different types of people, which is what makes it so interesting. So the ones you would expect, entrepreneurs, potential entrepreneurs, and so on, academics who can learn a lot. So we've had a lot of UCSF faculty go through this, and faculty from Japan and from Europe and from Australia. So really all over the place. Researchers, physicians, they're also pretty uninformed about business. So they have ideas, and they want to have greater impact than they can by just serving individual patients. Ecosystem managers, tech transfer heads. I still remember we had somebody from the UK heading tech transfer there, wanting to understand what happens after the technology is transferred. Corporate managers, pharma executives, startup advisors, consultants, government people, and investors. We had somebody who was investing a sovereign wealth fund in Malaysia come join at one point. We've had VCs and angels as well. This is Cecilia, who is running part of an ecosystem in Hong Kong. And she would get up in the middle of the night for the half of the classes that are scheduled for the convenience of Europe, but not for Asia. But she would take a nap at 11. She'd get up at 1 and come to class because she just didn't want to miss anything. And she wanted to be able to ask questions of the speakers. So I always hold her up as a great example. I was like, Cecilia, how do you do this? And she said, I take a nap. And it's a great strategy. I know we have people from Australia on the call, and maybe from some other Asian countries so think about that. And this is what our alumni network looks like. We now have over 600 alumni since I started this in 2020. They range across 6 continents, 41 countries. We have a LinkedIn network, and we have alumni events I talked about earlier. And there's lots of networking opportunities. Sunita's with a well-known Silicon Valley company called Gilead Sciences. And when she took the class, she hadn't joined them, but she has now, and she loved the networking. Here's our alumni event at JP Morgan in January, one of the years. So it's we have a virtual class. We've done some networking, but there's nothing like in person. So if you can make it to San Francisco, this is open to you. And for some details on the program, it starts October 1. It ends December 10th. You should expect to spend 3 to 6 hours per week on it. It's up to you. There's no grading. If you want to have a certificate, we do require a certain amount of attendance, but you don't have to go to the small groups. You don't really have to do anything beyond the lectures, which are the core. But we really encourage you to do more. The times alternate between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Pacific. So 9 a.m. is great for Europe, 5 p.m. is great for Asia Pacific. And I don't know where Egypt fits. I guess Egypt fits in Europe. That would be good, or close to European time, CET. Lectures are online, live and recorded. There's a certificate. The fee is $1,800, which is about a third of a class that you would get at one of the top tier institutions like Harvard, Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, etc. So it's very, very cost effective. And Inder Takar, who's on the screen, Inder, wave, say hello. You are the main contact for details about this class. And he'll always pass things along to me if it's something he doesn't think he should answer. This is what the certificate looks like. And this is last year's certificate, so you can prove you did this. And if you are interested in either joining the class or just staying in touch and learning more, please click on this link, and you will see other links that let you sign up or just stay on the list of you're interested. And I will stop here for other questions and open it up.
Stephanie, we have a question from Fernando. Fernando, do you want to go ahead and ask it?
Hi, Fernando.
Or I think his mic wasn't working, so I'll ask it for him maybe.
Oh, okay.
Is it recommended to have a provisional patent in the US to take this course?
Absolutely not. So we do not go, this is not a science course. We're not going to go into your science. We don't really want to hear about it. We want to hear about your business solution to a business problem. So we will never go deep into science, and no need to protect any IP. Nobody signs CDAs, for those of you who know what that is. This is, and this, by the way, is the way it works here in Silicon Valley. We share ideas without requiring people to sign off on anything, just as long as you don't go into the deep science behind it. Other questions? You can just raise your hand. Boy, it's such a silent group. Anybody here from France, where I just was? How about?
I'm from France, but I'm an alumni, Stephanie.
Yes, we know you, Jordan. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Jordan's at UCSF and comes to our entrepreneurship hangouts, which is coming up. So yeah, good to see you. How about Finland? Somebody from Finland? And we have a lot of people who signed up who maybe aren't here. Okay, we usually have questions. Come on, guys. There must be something you want to know about, or something about Ivana's company also, if I know.
Might be a little early.
Maybe I can ask a question.
Sure.
Would it be possible for us to receive this presentation?
I think we're going to be posting this on YouTube.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's good. Okay. Raphael, where are you?
So technically I'm from Switzerland, but I'm representing some Polish companies.
Oh, right. Good. Oh, Raphael, great. We're going to meet. Hello. Nice to see you. Hi. We can talk later about this too. Anyone else with a question? Let's see. I'm looking. Hanan, you're the Egyptian, which I'm very pleased to see. I don't think we've had any Egyptians. Do you, do you have any questions you want to ask? All right. Everybody's silent. Well, in that case, I'm going to thank you all for coming. I will stick around for a few minutes if anyone wants to ask me questions offline. So stick around if you want to, or if you want to just meet some other people who are interested in